So I just heard two really good breakdowns about this Beterbiev Bivol fight. One from Teddy Atlas, one from Andre Rozier, and both are very good breakdowns. I want to talk about them because I definitely agree with one of them. My name is Donnie P. The left hook. Let's go. Okay, man. So let's get into it, baby, because it's about to be the fight. Fight this Saturday. This is about to be the greatest fight of the year, I think. Definitely the best matchup. And today I heard two really good, interesting two sides of the coin about the fight. One from Teddy Atlas, one from Andre Rozier. Two great trainers that definitely know what they're talking about. And like I said, I definitely agree with one of them. But I want to get into Teddy Atlas's part, what he was saying first, because man, I love listening to Teddy talk sometimes, just because this guy he uses more parables in the Bible. I mean, this guy just loves to he loves to speak and just use parable after parable, and it's just fun. It's just fun to watch. It's fun to listen to. So, but I'm not going to break down his parables, but I will break down what he was saying. Basically, he looked at both of those guys. He looks at both Bivol and Beterbiev as two warriors, right? Um, he knows that Beterbiev is the stronger, probably puncher. He acknowledges as much. And he thinks that basically Beterbiev, what he does is he just breaks everyone's will, right, with his strength. And he thinks that Beterbiev is definitely from a part of the world where it's hard men. But he also thinks Bivol is from a very similar part of the world, and he also feels that Bivol is also got the same type of hardness in even though even though we don't really have to see it as much, because Bivol is a boxer and he uses a lot of his skill, whereas Beterbiev is always breaking people's will and breaking them down and just stopping. And I agree with that so far. You know what I'm saying? I agree with that take. Actually, I agree with a lot of that. All of it. I definitely think Bivol is a hard dude. I think Beterbiev is a hard guy. They're both they're both probably the toughest guys at 175 in my opinion. Not only that, they both have good skill, great skill level, great boxing skill level. So he went on to say that, he did highlight that, a lot of, obviously Bivol's skill level is out there. You can see it. So Beterbiev is more subtle. It's very skillful as well, but his movements are subtle. He slightly moves to get closer. He measures the distance you just don't see it as much because he is such a power puncher and a hard hitter. He puts himself in position to throw hard punches and to end people. Bivol puts himself in positions he's moving all over the place, and he puts himself in positions to throw really good combinations on him. So you can really see Bivol's mastery when he's fighting. I agree with that 100%. And then when it comes to Beterbiev, you don't always see how much of a master he actually is at boxing, because he's a power guy, and sometimes his power is so devastating that it gets overlooked as a guy that, like Teddy had said, a guy who maybe takes a punch to give a punch, and it's not like that. He's not a guy that takes a punch to give a punch. He's the kind of guy that does creep his way in there methodically, slowly, and it's kind of like very subtly. He used that word a lot, and I agree with that word. It's perfect. It's a perfect word. He's very subtle, but he's in perfect position to lay shots, power shots, and that takes boxing IQ. So he's basically saying they both have great boxing IQ, and even know that Bivol may have more IQ, maybe better, but probably maybe a better boxer. He's definitely giving his props to Beterbiev as being a great boxer as well, an underrated probably boxer along with the power he has. And then he also said, then he talked about like the will part of it. He talked about how everybody that Beterbiev fights, he breaks down that will. He breaks their will. He comes in and just takes their heart from them. I agree with that as well. But then he also said that Bivol's will is also, he thinks, at that similar level, a very similar level. And that when the two men get in the ring, he thinks that it's going to be a will versus skill, but we're not taking into account how much will Bivol actually has. He's giving Beterbiev the will part, and he's giving Bivol the skill part, but also saying Bivol has a lot more will than what we're trying to give him credit for. So at the end of the day, he expects, and he said he could be wrong, which I respect that, of course, but he expects, and I've heard him say this before, he expects Bivol to kind of be the man that's going to have the blueprint to beat Beterbiev. He says it's going to be a will versus skill, but Bivol has a lot of will, and he's going to that will is going to carry him through and allow him to beat Beterbiev. And then we had Andre Rozier. Andre Rozier said flat out, nobody beats Beterbiev. He says he's just too strong, too hard, and too powerful, and too much for anybody. He said that he does so many. He talked about how well Beterbiev boxes, how well he moves, how well he puts himself in position, and then obviously he's so strong. He knows how to get in there and finish. And I have to agree with all that too. The thing is, I agree with both of these guys on so much. Even though they had opposite stances. One guy is saying Beterbiev is unbeatable, and the other guy is saying that Bivol, he expects Bivol to win because he thinks Bivol has all the tools and all the willpower. He's underappreciated for his willpower, and he thinks that will shine through when it's time for him and Beterbiev to fight. So one thing that stuck out for me from Teddy that I did disagree with, is he did harp on the fact that like it's will versus skill, and that boxing is 75% mental. Now, I agree with what he's saying half the time, basically. So boxing can be 75% mental only when you have guys at very, very equal skill levels or strength levels, or just levels, period. It doesn't matter how much will someone has if they don't have any skill, right? For instance, I'll just give you a great example. You could take the toughest, a great example, and this is my point right here. Francis Ngannou, right? No one's going to question his will. No one's going to question his will at all. I would guarantee you that he would beat down Anthony Joshua and any other boxer in the octagon, right? It's not about will. It's about skill, So if they do MMA, Ngannou's going to dominate AJ. But if they box, AJ is going to knock out Ngannou in one round. Okay? So it's not just will versus skill. It's not just 75% will if you don't have the skill to back it up. And so when I relate that over to Beterbiev versus Bivol, willpower, you need that skill to have will. You need to know how to cover up, you need to know how to block. You can't just say, oh, I got willpower, so I'm going to overcome Beterbiev's punches. No, everyone has a breaking point, right? Like everyone's got a breaking point. And Beterbiev, we can't tell how. When someone is much stronger than everybody else, you can't really say that it's his will beating you. You know what I'm saying? you know, a grown man can dominate kids all day long. We're not going to say it's his will. We're going to say that he's just more dominant. Now, if that grown man, I think now you watch you now, for instance, now you say you take a grown man who can dominate little kids, right? You put him against men, and all of a sudden he cowers, right? Now you look at those little kids that he dominated against each other. Those little kids now fighting each other at like the same level. You a lot of those kids that he dominated, you might see that they have more will and more want to and are ready to go in there and give it their all than that man who just beat them all. I'm kind of what I'm saying is Bivol can have twice the will of Beterbiev if he wanted to. You know, he can have 5 times the will of Beterbiev, but if Beterbiev is a grown man and Bivol is a child, then it doesn't matter how much will he has, because at the end of the day, you know, getting hit on the chin is scientific. You know, if you get hit hard enough in a certain spot, it doesn't have anything to do with will. You remember Manny Pacquiao when he got put down by Marquez? Manny Pacquiao has no quit in his system. Manny Pacquiao is we know he is the toughest dude. He is so tough. Love Manny Pacquiao, and so nice too. That's what's great about Manny. But he's so tough. He has no quit, but he got slept because it had nothing to do with will. It had to do with skill, and then also just getting hit right. So Beterbiev versus Bivol, like when they fight each other, to me, it's not really about the will of either man. Their will is going to be, you know, as much as they can possibly take. You know what I'm saying? But if Bivol is taking, if Beterbiev has to take punches from Bivol, right, and Bivol has to take punches from Beterbiev, well, we know Beterbiev hits harder. So like, Bivol could have more will, but if he's getting hit by punches that are twice as hard, and even if he has more will than Beterbiev, if the punches aren't hurting Beterbiev, then Beterbiev doesn't have to have the will to keep going because he's not being hurt. Whereas Bivol is getting hurt with all these punches, so he has to have the will to continue. You see what I'm saying? So I did disagree with the whole will versus skill thing, and I disagreed that, like, you know, will is what's gonna make the difference here or make the win here. No, to me, what it is, it's simple. It's just who's bigger and badder. That's it. Because they're both. I think they're both willing to just, you know, go out on their backs. They're both professionals. They're both tough guys. We've seen them. We've seen them both get hurt. I've seen them both back up. Actually, I've never really seen Beterbiev really back up. You know, just a little bit. But I've seen Bivol. He will back up. His will. Not will, but just like he will change his game plan if you hit him right. So anyway, not to take much longer, but I will give my prediction here on the fight. Obviously, I think if you guys have listened to anything I've said, I'm very impressed with Artur Beterbiev. I'm very impressed with him. I expect Beterbiev to stop Bivol. I'd say somewhere between, you know, late 9, 10, 11, 12. You know, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's where I see him stopping him. But I see him hurting him a lot. I see Beterbiev hurting Bivol a lot. Because Bivol is a tough fighter, and he will stand in there and he will throw. He's not eluding everything. He's standing in there and throwing. So I mean, I think he will definitely be the most cautious he's ever fought in his life. This will be the most cautious fight Bivol's ever had, and rightfully so. He's a smart boxer. He knows that Beterbiev. But you know, at the end of the day, like you said, Teddy Atlas also said something. You know, you can always talk about what you're going to do, you know, until you get in the ring, and then you see who's in front of you. You feel those punches, and no slight to Bivol whatsoever. But you know, I've just seen what Beterbiev can do. His punches aren't. He doesn't hit. He hits like it's inhuman power. It's crazy power that he has, and you know, you're going to have to be something ridiculous. In fact, I will say this. I mean, from what I've been watching boxing for like 30 years, to me, the only person that beats Beterbiev at light heavyweight is a prime Roy Jones Jr. That's the only person. And I think just because I know, we've seen Beterbiev get hurt, and I know Roy can hurt him. Obviously, Roy will be able to hurt him. And Roy's so quick, Roy's so fast. Beterbiev's gonna have a hard time. Now, obviously, Beterbiev is gonna be able to hurt Roy too, but it's gonna be hard. It'll be hard for Beterbiev to hit Roy, and also Roy is so dangerous. And Bivol, and there's Beterbiev, not anybody. There's nobody that can really get out of the way of those punches. So I would give Roy Jones as the only person that could beat Beterbiev, and a prime Roy Jones at that. But Beterbiev, he has one thing about Beterbiev is he's 40 years old now, 39 years old, and he's still putting people down, putting people to sleep. So Beterbiev is definitely, the strongest light heavyweight I've seen. He might be the strongest boxer I've seen, period, pound for pound. And I definitely expect him to win this fight. I expect a pretty one-sided performance even. I expect it to kind of be, similar to Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. I see like spots where it's close, where they're going back and forth, and spots where maybe even Bivol's getting a little bit better, and then all of a sudden, boom, knockdown. And then it's going to be, again, spots where it's going to be going back and forth, spots where it's going to be even, then boom, knockdown. And then, once you get knocked down 3 or 4 times, then all of a sudden he unleashes, and then all of a sudden you get hurt bad. And then I see a stoppage. Like I said, I see a stoppage, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round, somewhere in there. It's not the greatest prediction, but I definitely see a stoppage. I see a win by Beterbiev. And I see a great fight, though, regardless. And I see Bivol getting all my respect in the world after the fight. I mean, Bivol has all my respect. Beterbiev has all my respect. These two boxers, they should be probably the 2 most respected boxers in the league right now, in boxing right now, because they're just perfect representatives. They perfectly represent the sport. There's not a lot of trash talk. There's not a lot of talking sideways and talking out of your, backside. They're saying they're not talking about what they're going to do. They're talking about, let's wait and see what happens on Saturday night. And that's what I want to see, real guys about to go at it. So tell me what you guys think. Let me get all your predictions. Just lay a prediction. Just Beterbiev, Bivol. Just type it in, please. And again, if you liked it, if you like what I'm doing, subscribe. I appreciate you. Left hook.